Have you ever felt like your soul doesn't belong here? That no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you fit in, there's something about you that's still different. Maybe that's not a flaw, maybe it's the opposite. Today, we're going to reveal the 6 invisible signs that indicate an extremely rare aura. Signs that don't appear on the surface, but they are behind the greatest internal transformations. Carl Jung said that there are souls that carry such rare codes, that society itself tries to silence them. And it's no coincidence. The rarer an energy field is, the more it disturbs the structures that thrive on repetition. People with this unusual aura do not identify with the noise of the world. They feel more. They think more. They see what no one else wants to see, but there is a price. And that is why many of these beings lose themselves in pain before understanding the power they carry. If you have these signs, you may also have a rare aura, and maybe you've already felt it in your skin without ever having a name for it. Get ready to recognize yourself, or to recognize someone who has always seemed inexplicable to you. Sign number 6 on our list is the hardest to explain because it happens in silence. You feel everything deeply, even when no one says anything. Even when the environment seems calm on the surface. It's as if there were a second layer of the world, and you walk through it all the time. People with this kind of aura don't just perceive, they absorb. And because of this, they often feel exhausted for no apparent reason. You walk into a place, and something inside you already knows whether you should stay or leave, even without hearing a single word. This sensitivity is not fragility. It is an advanced form of energy expression, a kind of intuitive radar that operates outside of common logic. According to Carl Jung, older souls carry an unconscious memory that is intertwined with collective pain. This explains why they often feel what no one else sees. Modern neuroscience also recognizes this. They call it mirror neuron hyperactivity, an area of the brain that mirrors the emotions of others and transforms the pain of others into your own pain. But what science does not yet understand is why these people are precisely those who face the greatest processes of internal purification. Esoteric traditions have an ancient explanation for this. Feeling intensely is the first stage of transmutation, because only those who feel are capable of transforming. And if this trait describes you, you already carry one of the rarest signs of this journey. There are those who see the world as a sequence of isolated events. But there are also those who see invisible lines connecting everything, and you are probably one of those people. 5th on our list is the almost instinctive ability to recognize hidden patterns in life, in people, and in the cycles of time. It's as if something inside you makes connections that no one else does. A single phrase, a quick gesture, a silence, and your mind has already mapped out a complete map of intentions. You feel that certain repetitions are not coincidences. They are signs that reality often communicates through symbols. Carl Jung called this synchronicity, events that have no causal relationship but are deeply connected by meaning. To most, this seems like intuition, but those who possess this type of perception know it's not just intuition, it's energy reading. It's like deciphering the hidden code behind what seems mundane. Neuroscience today is beginning to observe that brains with this ability have greater activation in the anterior cingulate cortex, an area linked to pattern detection and event anticipation. But science still hesitates to call it a gift. The ancient alchemists, however, had no doubts. Seeing the invisible is the first step in transmuting matter. And when you start to notice that certain people appear in your life with the same kind of energy, that certain dates always bring the same kind of emotion, that certain environments evoke memories you've never experienced, then maybe you're not just living, you're interpreting the world through the eyes of your soul. And there's nothing rarer than that. There are pains that have no name, and there are wounds that have never been opened, but bleed nonetheless. 4th on our list is a deep mark, the constant feeling of carrying something heavy inside you, without knowing exactly where it came from. Perhaps you have already felt this silently, in the intervals of life, in moments when everything seemed fine, but inside, something felt wrong, as if a part of you was crying for something your mind didn't yet understand. Carl Jung said that the unconscious carries not only what we repress, but also the forgotten traces of all humanity. It's as if your soul has memories of things your body has never experienced. And when you carry this pain without origin, without rational explanation, it is not weakness. It is archetypal sensitivity. You feel what many avoid. You feel the cracks in the collective soul, as if your body were an extension of a universal memory, ancestral, invisible, and sacred. Neuroscience is beginning to give names to this: epigenetic memories and transgenerational emotional inheritance. Word. These are emotions passed down from generation to generation through biological markers that shape the way we feel and react, even without direct trauma. But the ancients already knew this. In esoteric schools, they spoke of karmic inheritance, unresolved cycles that infiltrate the consciousness of a new being, waiting to be healed. Perhaps you have never been abandoned, but you feel an inexplicable fear of being left behind. Perhaps you have never faced direct violence, but you carry a silent anger that you don't know where it comes from. This is the pain of those who were born to break cycles, of those who came to cleanse, heal, and restore what has been distorted. People like this feel the world more strongly because their spiritual body is on a rescue mission, rescuing memories, rescuing old bonds, rescuing truths that have been buried for generations. You feel that your sadness has layers, that it is not only yours, that it connects to something bigger, something collective, something too old to be explained in words. And that is precisely why you also hold the key to transmutation. The same pain that seems ownerless gives you access to a silent force, the force of those who have come into the world to purify their own lineage, to transform pain into direction, emptiness into purpose, silence into liberation. It is at this point that the initiate begins to realize the pain he felt as a burden was, in fact, the compass of his mission. There is a kind of loneliness that does not hurt. It does not come from absence. It comes from depth. In third place on our list is this silent but unmistakable trait. You prefer to be alone, but you never feel truly lonely. This is not isolation, much less misanthropy. You have simply learned to listen to what most people ignore. You have discovered that the noise of the world often drowns out the only voice that matters, yours. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, a journey in which human beings distance themselves not out of arrogance, but out of a need for integration. It is in silence that you hear what is out of tune. It is in solitude that you listen to your soul. And strangely, when you are at peace with yourself, that is when you feel most that there is something or someone with you. A presence, a vibration, as if the empty space were actually filled with something greater. Ancient mystics spoke of egregores, living energy fields that accompany the initiate on their inner journey. These are not hallucinations. They are vibrational realities that manifest when the mind is silent and the spiritual field expands. Modern neuroscience still hesitates to name the invisible, but it is already studying the so-called default mode brain, a neural network that activates precisely when we are at rest, with our eyes closed, in a state of contemplation. It is in this state that symbolic images emerge, that answers come without questions, that intuition becomes clearer than any logic. You may have noticed the best ideas do not come from chaos. They come when you walk alone, look at the sky, or simply close your eyes for a moment longer than usual. And in those moments, you feel it. You feel that you are accompanied by something ancient, by something wise, perhaps by versions of yourself from other lives, perhaps by guides, perhaps by what the ancients called spirit. You know that this solitude is a passage, and that true soulmates make no noise. They appear between the lines of a thought, in the inexplicable emotion of a song, in the chill that comes out of nowhere, in the peace that descends when everything is silent. This is not common. This cannot be trained. It is a rare sign that you have already passed the first great test of the initiate, that of facing your own presence and still remaining. There is a kind of presence that makes masks fall even when no one asked for it. You walk into a room and, without understanding exactly how, people start talking. They reveal secrets, confessions, memories kept for decades. Sometimes even outbursts they didn't know they were ready to make. And it's not because you're curious. You don't force anything, you're just there, and it happens. Second on our list, this is one of the most mysterious and powerful traits of rare auras, the ability to open portals of vulnerability in others just by being there. It's as if your energy silently says, you can let down your guard, I'll understand. And the other person understands this without words. This is not a social skill, it's an energetic signature. In esoteric language, these people are called living mirrors, or anchors of transmutation. Jung would say that they are individuals with a more permeable unconscious, capable of touching the symbolic field of another without saying a word. And science has something to say here too. Recent neuroscience studies have explored the concept of mirror neurons, brain cells that are activated both when we feel something and when we observe someone else feeling it. But in highly sensitive or energetically open people, this mirroring network seems more intense, more receptive, more ancestral. It's as if you embody the role of a silent confessor, a priest without an altar, a therapist without a diploma. People open up, not because you want to hear them, but because your field makes silence unbearable. And the curious thing is that this doesn't always happen in peaceful situations. Often, it is in moments of crisis, conflict, chaos, when the other person doesn't know what they are feeling, when their emotions are running high. That is when you become a kind of vortex, a space where the truth can come out of hiding. That is why it is not uncommon for these people to be sought out for advice, even when they don't have all the answers. In fact, especially when they don't. Because those who have a rare aura don't need to say much. Their energy alone gives them permission. And there is one detail that few people notice. When this energetic openness is misunderstood, it can become a burden. You begin to absorb the pain of others as if it were your own. You become confused with emotions that did not originate with you. And if you are not aware of this, you may begin to carry guilt and suffering that does not belong to you. Therefore, this sign requires deep spiritual maturity. Your presence is medicine for others. But you need to remember that you are also human. You also need to be cared for. And that sometimes it is not selfish to withdraw. It is self-care. This rare aura that welcomes and listens without judgment is valuable, but it needs clear, energetic boundaries. Otherwise, the same sensitivity that heals can hurt. In Egyptian tradition, there is talk of the energy of Isis, the goddess who listens to the cries of the world and transforms pain into wisdom. But even Isis would retreat to the temple to renew her light. Perhaps this is your calling, and perhaps you already know it. But there are still 2 signs left. And the next one is one of those that can be seen in the eyes, or rather in the absence of words when the eyes meet. Among all the signs that identify an extremely rare aura, there is one that cannot be trained. It cannot be taught, copied, or simulated. It is the sign that ranks first on our list and confuses those who try to decipher you. It is the power to convey presence, even in absolute silence. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to need to explain themselves all the time? Justify who they are, what they think, what they feel, as if they were in constant need of external validation. Not you. When you're in a room, you don't fill the space with words, you fill it with energy. And even when you say nothing, you are noticed. Not out of vanity, but because of your intensity. This kind of presence is not loud. It is dense, magnetic, and sometimes even disconcerting to those who have never felt it before. People with this characteristic are like walking portals. Being around them brings the feeling that something invisible is being observed and perhaps even judged, not out of moralism, but out of a deeper awareness. Those in front of you feel that they cannot hide what they carry inside, and for many, that's scary. It's not uncommon for them to try to diminish its intensity. They call it coldness, arrogance, or distance, but in reality, they are reacting to the strength of your field, which forces them to confront their own masks. Carl Jung, when speaking of the collective unconscious, said that there are people whose energy touches layers that most avoid. They don't need to talk about spirituality. They are spirituality incarnate, and that is precisely why, when they are around, others reveal themselves or withdraw. Their mere presence begins the process of alchemy, and when silence settles between you and someone else, it is never empty. It is a mirrored silence, revealing. A silence that exposes, like a mirror that does not accept blurred reflections. This is a skill that neuroscience is still studying with curiosity. They call it tacit presence or energetic authority. Researchers such as Daniel Goleman, author of Emotional Intelligence, have pointed out that certain individuals have such a high emotional impact on their environment that they elicit psychophysiological responses in those around them, even without any verbal stimulus. Heart rates change, breathing slows down, defenses come down. But beyond biology, there is something else. In Hermetic esotericism, this type of presence is linked to the mastery of the causal body, a subtle layer of being that carries energetic impressions from multiple existences. When someone walks with this body awake, their presence does not belong only to the now. It reverberates other eras, other times, other versions of the same spirit. You become, without realizing it, a reminder of something the other person once was, or still needs to become. That is why people with this sign are often seen as old souls. You don't need a stage, a spotlight, or followers. You need truth. You need a connection without noise. You need bonds that respect the depth of what you carry. And this truth, even when silent, bothers those who live by appearances. Your presence activates processes. It pokes at wounds. It disarms egos. Not by choice, but by essence. And over time, you may have learned to avoid crowds, to choose your places, your gazes, your bonds carefully, because you no longer want to deal with the weight of being the one who activates what others are not ready to see. But if you've made it this far, maybe you're ready to hear this. This presence is not a curse. It is a gift, an energetic password that few souls have received in this era. You were not made to hide. You were made to sustain silence where everyone else is screaming, and to reveal the invisible just by existing. You carry a calling, and even if the world does not understand your silence, those who are initiated will always recognize your vibration. Now that the 6 signs have been revealed, perhaps something has stirred within you. Perhaps you recognized yourself in more than one. Perhaps you felt relief to discover that what you carry has a name. Or perhaps you realized that you are still at the beginning of this path. And that's okay, because a rare aura is not a gift to be flaunted. It is a journey. It is born of pain, loss, and failure, but it is strengthened by clarity, solitude, and the courage to be whole in a world that fragments. Carl Jung said that the encounter with the soul is also the encounter with the shadow. and that only those who pass through their own darkness are worthy of carrying light. That is why, deep down, these signs are not just characteristics. They are marks of those who have faced their own inner labyrinth and emerged from it without losing their essence. If you've made it this far, there is something in you that recognizes this path, something that knows it wasn't by chance. Because true awakening never comes through the intellect. It pulses, it calls, it transforms. Maybe no one has told you this before, but there are others like you, scattered, silent, searching, and that's why we created this space. Here your sensitivity will not be weakness, your lucidity will not be punishment, and your silence will not be interpreted as absence. If this resonates with your essence, like this video and subscribe. But more than that, comment below with the phrase, "My light carries scars." This will be our secret mark among those who are awakening.